All right, so I was watching here. This is commentary on this YouTube video. I do it again. I do it again. I do again. I do, like in marriage again, with Jeff and Cheryl Scruggs, and I'm 16 minutes through a 40-minute, video here. More to say, but I think I've heard what matters the most from it. And basically in how I've presented and how I'm thinking, and yes, my thinking applies to couples in marriage, but it's just to life. But just say that God's analogy of his relationship with the church, which as Christians we're all in, marriage is his way to describe that. So it's like kill two birds with one stone. But my primary interest here is to still, bigger picture. My primary interest here is still to be a pastor. Just understand this. I'm trying to start Sunday school and all this with the idea of church and healthy living based on those 8 things. But what is shared here is the common grounding in what I'm saying. All sin is bad, that the rock-based life of Matthew 24 and 25, something that can be trusted for the long term, is Jesus. So I'm now taking that thinking and the approach that I'm presenting and putting it over top of this story here. So what do we hear from them? Well, we hear that they went to church. Like, in their case, they didn't even go, but it was God that drew them together, which is interesting because, well, it highlights what I'm saying. So my biggest criticism, where I feel the most frustrated now, is the church. Is the church's role. Now, deeper than this is the 3 verses that are 3 concepts that I, get trust in. Where, I'll show you here, but the 3 things that I get trust in are that it's not my responsibility to, bring about world peace. It's not my responsibility to, if the people that come into the Sunday school class, or, that's not. I have a role to do, and what do they say? You pray as though it all depends on God, but act as though it all depends on you. I mean, this is one of those paradoxes. Well, what I can control is everything that I can do, okay? And I believe in this method. But at a base level here, I'm not right or wrong because of it working or not. There's dynamics here that get. But what I've primarily believe, and even in my own story or in anyone's here, is that God can be trusted. And that's the thing that I cling to in hope even now, where it's Jesus's job. Some months back in church, this guest speaker came and he was talking about the Holy Spirit, and at first the Holy Spirit was fully alive in Adam and Eve, and then after the fall, the Holy Spirit didn't go away, but it was much faded. Sin entered the world, and so the interplay between human and the Holy Spirit was a faded picture, like that was negative, and it is. But I was thinking to myself, that is the positive here. I'm trusting Jesus to make relationships better. Now, okay? And what are the verses on this? And I've seen it in my own life because, I got no friends, which includes my family. And so there's a reality here that God, Abba Father, did this to me. Nobody gets the credit here, okay? And even though faults and credits and everything can be defined externally, the deepest reality is God is our Father, right? It's his job. So with that in mind, let's look at these verses. So here's one here. The author and perfecter of our faith, Hebrews 12, something or other. And then this is another one, that God draws us, okay? And so here's a little thing about this, where Jesus declares, John, this one here, let's see if I can bring the cursor and do this, where Jesus declares that no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. And we could do that, but there's just this, again, element that it's not Dwayne's method, and even though then a pastor can just cowardly back out and say it's not my responsibility. No, no. Do your damn job. And rebuke and define what Christian, who knows where this will go. If things can get to Chuck Colson's level, or not Chuck Colson, Chuck Swindoll. There's too many Chucks. Okay. Charles Stanley, Charles Colson, he's the prison guy. Where did he come from? But Swindoll, there's three of them. That's confusing to me. Okay, and anyway, here's the last one that came to mind to me. So, he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. Well, I feel that for myself. So that's, three different things that are just getting at, I can kind of rest here. I need to do my part, but there's a peace inside it. God is the boss here. He will discipline on his own, whether churches do or not. It's not an excuse, but I'm just saying this is the reality that I'm in. God is sovereign, so maybe I'm the vehicle to bring about world peace. But down to base things, it's not Beta Rock doing the job here. I'm pointing and doing everything I can because there are verses like Matthew 18 that say to rebuke. But where the church clearly to me sat at fault, both now and after my first marriage, in that pain there, like if I had been in the Sunday school class that I'm trying to design to have it taught into me correctly, a church pastor would have been saying, I feel your pain. I'm not critical of your pain. It makes sense. But it is an indication of deep problems. You need to learn to live okay by yourself, which I had heard people say, but again, the church ultimately, in twisted ways that weren't clear, there needed to be firm, right and wrong here. Not kind of firm. I got kind of firm, but because there was wiggle room, and even down to Bible verses that allow this. Yeah, but all I'm saying is in hindsight that the church is my primary attack. We don't have an excuse here of being dumb and ignorant as a global group. We need to get our acts together and define better boundaries because it would have helped me. And it surely would help oodles and oodles of other people. And at some level, the fact that this couple here, what are their names again? Jeff and Cheryl Scruggs, are not even in church. God did the work. That's a shame on the church. It ought to. All in all, we see these elements. She's lonely, and the providing, and like in my two models, there's the abounding life, and so things were not abounding. All right, but I look at her and say, but however, if that could have gotten put into us, but the principle is that she needed to learn to be depraved. Okay? Now, God did his work here. That's what brought the thing back into togetherness, is the conviction of the church. She was wrong. She admits that. So I feel good about my teaching compared to this. And maybe I'll try to reach out to them, but this had me down a path of what does it take? What does it take? And so this essentially confirms what I've been saying, that whether it happens or not doesn't sit aside from the fact of what is right. And what I'm saying is right. And I think my model then can catch it on the front end better than anything that's out there now. The deception. You see that? And I've heard this, 100,000 times. But the problem is other people that would have been in a Sunday school class that would have observed it. Now, he said, and then she lied, right? But other people surely would have been affirming the thing, like, we're going to come in here a little closer. No. Here's your green slip of paper. I'm very concerned here. Does that happen in any church around here? Anywhere? No. Does it need to happen? Yeah. And I mean, I'm thinking of divorce, but again, I'm thinking of just life in general. You're fat. And who says this? Here's a green sheet of paper. You're fat. But again, do you want to have all the negatives that come from hear me? Any sin? I'm done. I got no boo to say. I think that says it just fine.